Hi guys, this is Lena at The Silent Wave, and first I wanted to start with by thanking everybody that visited and watched the first video, that liked and commented and subscribed, and God, you guys are just awesome. So I just wanted to give y'all a really big thank you, Texas-sized thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your support, and both here on this channel and also on the blog so far. I think it's been really encouraging, and like I said, I can't thank you enough for everything that y'all have said and done. And I wanted to go ahead and get this recorded tonight because I know that there have been several people that have asked, hey, when's your next video coming out? So again, I thank y'all too, because those, even questions like that are very encouraging to me, and I really love that y'all like the videos, and I really appreciate all that. Anyway, I thought I'd take this video to just kind of give a little bit of background for those who may not know me as well, or who've only met me recently, or maybe this is the first you're hearing of me, and that's cool too. I'm 40 years old, just turned, and I have been formally diagnosed with Asperger's and autism both. I got my formal dual diagnosis a little over a year ago, so about a year and a month to the day today. And using both the DSM-5 as well as the ICD-10. So I was given the diagnosis of Asperger's from the ICD-10, as well as the diagnosis of autism spectrum from the DSM-5. You'll notice that I stopped by saying right at the point that I would say autism spectrum, and I didn't go so far as to say disorder, because to me it's not a disorder, it's just a difference, if anything. So anyway, my story, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about my story. My story starts a little bit before that. So we're looking at a diagnosis coming down in November 2016. The journey itself actually started around toward the tail end of March of 2016. And the diagnosis was actually sort of a corroboration of what I had learned in about 7.5 months leading up to that. So I kind of wanted to tell you a little bit about how that came to be. Essentially what happened was, I was doing what I had done for years, for the last several years, in fact. I was looking through journals. When I would get home from work, I would start kind of almost a second part-time job, if you will, and that's to sit on the couch with my laptop and go through some of the medical journals that are out there, because that's one of my interests, and it's one of my focal areas that's very intense for me. So essentially, I was going through some of I was on a journal called Neuroimage, one word, Neuroimage, and it's an excellent journal. And I was perusing the archives, and I was looking through the free full text studies that offer the entire paper downloadable for free, usually in like a PDF type form, and I was saving those to my hard drive. So that's one of my collections, which I had no idea that any of this was a manifestation of Asperger's traits, and it turns out that it was. So I was looking through this journal, these neuroimage archives, and I'm looking at the study titles, and that's how I decide whether or not to save something to my hard drive. So what happened was, I was looking and I started seeing titles of these articles that said things like they used Asperger's and autism quite a bit, and they also talked about how it usually mentions something else in the title too. So an example might be Asperger's and something about clumsiness, or something about cerebellar function, or something in Asperger's, or sensory sensitivities in autism, or something like that. These aren't direct quotes, but they give you an idea of kind of examples and stuff. So I'm looking at that, and I thought, as I was scrolling down, I was probably perusing these archives of this one journal for about 2 or 3 weeks already. It'd been the beginning of March that I started to peruse these archives of this particular journal. And as I'm going through, I start to think, I'm like, okay, I've got cerebellar issues. Cerebellum being that part of the brainstem that controls movement and coordination. It's responsible for some balance and whatnot. So I thought, maybe, just maybe. Then I thought, okay, I'm also seeing some sensory overload, and then they started talking about stuff like creativity and motor movements, and I was like, this looks kind of suspicious. And it started to kind of hit home like, okay, I'm seeing all of these things in conjunction with Asperger's and autism just in the titles of these articles. And I thought, all right. Then all of a sudden, this memory of it was probably about 2.5 years before that, we'd been at a family reunion, and I'd met some of my family for the first time, and one of those family members, definitely, she had some irregular speech. She had some what I would call quirks or oddities or whatever in her speech, and she was and also some of her interest. And then I realized, when we were sitting down at dinner at this family reunion, and about 2.5 years prior to March 2016, she started telling stories and kind of, hey, this getting to know you kind of thing, like long lost family members finally coming together. And she started saying, like, she would start out her stories, for example, in April of 1991, when I was in Bloomington, Indiana with so and so, and she named off the 4 people in the car, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's how I start my stories too. In March of 2016, here I'm doing, and she had this penchant for dates, and the people, I mean, her memory was amazing, and people had always also complimented me on my memory, and I thought, so then everything kind of like kabam together, and it was just kind of everything meeting up. These journal articles that I was perusing, this flashback to this one particular family member who her mom had told me later on, yeah, we think she's got something maybe on the autism spectrum, but we're not sure. She was never really diagnosed, and it made sense because this cousin was like 43, and so she definitely had some assistance in her living and whatnot, her living situation, and she but she definitely had some limitations as far as that's concerned. But at the same time, she was a joy to be around, and I felt like I kind of instantly bonded with her in a way that I could not explain at that time. And so when that happened, everything coming together on March 23rd or 24th of 2016, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to know. And so then what I did not do is look up the symptoms or traits of Asperger's or autism, because I wanted to go ahead and I Googled for the quiz. That I came across the Asperger's or autism quotient test that was put together by Stephen Baron Cohen, and Wired magazine talked about it. Well, PsychCentral.com, I think, was the one that was where I got my quiz, and I started taking it, and I did not want there to be any factors that kind of played into, or influenced how I answered, and that way I couldn't subconsciously or unintentionally begin to, desire to look more Asperger's or autistic or not. So I just basically wanted to walk in completely, almost blindfolded in a way, proverbially, and take the test myself. And I thought, and then so I'm looking down at the test results on my phone. I went outside to do this and just sat in my zone, and I took the test, and I thought, okay. And so I got my score, and I'm scrolling down, and I'm like, 43, what does that mean? A number doesn't mean much without the key, without the ranges and the meaning. So I needed to decipher that. And I'm scrolling down, and I'm seeing, okay, 0 to 25, no Asperger's or autism, nothing like that. 26 to 31 is more borderline, and then 32 on up is almost assuredly. And if anyone's ever wondering whether or not that test is valid and those scores are valid, the test has been studied pretty extensively and found to be pretty reliable, to the point where 86 or 84%, somewhere in that neighborhood, of the people that fall between the 26 and the 31 will meet the criteria and could ultimately be diagnosed as Asperger's or autistic. And so I thought 43 is a pretty strong score. Of course, it's not as if taking one simple quiz online doesn't necessarily make a diagnosis. But I think you get the idea of kind of what my starting point was. And from there, it just went and snowballed, and I kept looking up more things, looking up more topics, taking more of the available online quizzes and whatnot, and then eventually looking up the criteria and realizing that, yep, I certainly meet pretty much all of them. And that's basically my story, and now you kind of got a little bit of background as to who I am and everything, and kind of how this all came to be. And that was a whole year and a half ago. It's been so. A whole lot has changed since then, and it's one of those discoveries that I was actually really relieved to make, and very thankful. And so it explained so much, and it put a lot of pieces together for me. And I've heard that that's kind of the case from a lot of other people my age, and also of especially females. So hopefully you enjoyed my story, and I hope to do the next video a little sooner than almost 2 weeks. I'm trying to kind of shoot for that 1 to 2 week window, but maybe not hold out quite so long on y'all. All right, well, thanks for watching, and take care, everybody, until we see each other again. Thanks.